regional MVPs. We're looking at multiple MVPs across all 12 clubs based on the region that they played out of. So let's take a look at our best MVPs of the three regions. Let's start off in the West, Lisa. For OL Reign, shocking. We're going with Fallon Tullis-Joyce of OL Reign out of the West region. For Portland Thorns, we're going with Sophia Smith. For San Diego Wave FC, we're going with Kaylin Sheridan. And for Angel City FC, we're going with a defender in Jasmine Spencer. Listen, when we're looking at these four teams, we have three players who are in defensive positional areas. And you know how much I'm excited by that, Lisa. But I'm happy with our picks here. I think when we're looking at these teams and just sort of their one-off and looking at their performances within the Challenge Cup, coming out of the West, OL Reign making it to the semifinal, but Portland Thorns were in the mix, kind of had to come down to that final group stage. And unfortunately, due to some COVID protocols and player availability, they ended up dropping that last game and were unable to advance into the Challenge Cup semifinal knockout rounds. So unable to defend their 2021 Challenge Cup title. So just falling short of possibly getting that best second seed overall. But really impressed with Sophia Smith, as we've talked about a little bit out of this Portland Thorns side. But in terms of what we've got here, Lisa, in front of us, is there any one of these four that you think should be the actual number one MVP of the West region?
I think we have to go Fallon Tullis-Joyce because she's our goalkeeper in our best 11. I mean, this was tricky because this West region had a lot of spread out talent, if that makes sense. There wasn't so many players that stood out as every single game in the Challenge Cup. They were game changers in what was happening because between the two expansion sides in San Diego and Angel City, the progression over the Challenge Cup is really what was so impressive. And so when we look at Angel City and a player like June Endo, who had a really good Challenge Cup, but it also took her a few games to get her footing underneath of her. And it took Angel City as a club a few games before they were actually keeping possession of the ball, stringing passes together. And same goes for San Diego Wave. They needed time to click and come together. So that's why Kaylin Sheridan, goalkeeper out of San Diego, stood out because this was a consistent player. She kept San Diego in a lot of games with her tenacious goal-saving ability, shot stopping, her possession of the ball, being able to play out of the back with her feet. And then a player like Jasmine Spencer out of Angel City, who is a forward, listed as a forward, and the lack of depth for Freya Coombe in Angel City allowed Spencer to slot into the back line and pretty seamlessly. If you watched her play throughout the Challenge Cup, you weren't saying this player used to be a forward and now they're playing in the back, because her 1v1 defending was impressive. It was really good to see. So those players for sure stuck out. And then with Sophia Smith scoring goals for Portland Thorns, but I honestly think Fallon Tullis-Joyce had to play against a lot of tough competition as someone that has never played in the league before. And honestly, no one really knew who Tullis-Joyce was before this NWSL season came
100%.
in. And after the first 2 weeks, everyone was talking about her. And that's an MVP. That's someone that makes a difference in their team, in their region, and in their league. So I go Fallon Tullis-Joyce.
I'm with you 100%. I can't add anything to that. I'm with you. I think if we're looking at these four clubs out of the West region, if there's one overall MVP out of the West, got to look at Fallon Tullis-Joyce for, my biggest thing with Fallon Tullis-Joyce was those first couple of games. Mm-hmm. And I think when you can make an impression that quickly, that early, and not fall off, because it's easy to say it's early, things will shake out or even out or level out. That didn't happen. She introduced herself to so many different eyeballs in this league during the Challenge Cup and kept it on there all the way through the semifinals in this Challenge Cup. So I'm with you 100% when we're looking at the West. Fallon Tullis-Joyce. When we're looking at the Central region, Lisa, let's take a look at the clubs who went head to head in the Central region and name off our MVPs. For Kansas City Current, we're going with Kristin Hamilton. Chicago Red Stars, we're going with Alyssa Nair. Racing Louisville, we're going with Lauren Millay. And Houston Dash, we're going with Maria Sanchez. I like these. And you know what? The Central region was a region that we held dear and near to our hearts when we were going over any previewing or recaps during the Challenge Cup group stage, Lisa. We appreciated what they were presenting out there on the pitch and keeping things interesting all the way through the games of Challenge Cup group stage. But in terms of what we're looking at here across these four teams, look, we've got a goalkeeper once more leading the team in MVP and Alyssa Nair for Chicago Red Stars. I mean, we were going back and forth, I think, a little bit through between her and Mallory Pugh, but I think the overall amount of games and the sort of improvement that we saw from the Chicago Red Stars in terms of their defensive shape was kind of what sealed it for us a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I also think we need to talk a little bit about maybe the teams that didn't, have that type of Challenge Cup that they wanted to have. Teams like Racing Louisville, Houston Dash. When we're looking at these two teams and going with a player like Lauren Millay sticks out a little bit for us, I think.
It does. I mean, Racing Louisville struggled with a lot of consistency throughout this Challenge Cup. So, and we looked at players that played consistent games and consistent minutes in games. And in instances of teams like OL Reign and Racing Louisville that had a lot of balanced scoring, meaning there wasn't one player that ran away with 5 or 6 goals throughout this Challenge Cup. And Lauren Millay, a player that played in 6 games. She had a number of minutes for this club. She created 6 chances and led the team with those 6 chances created, but notched away 1 goal. Lauren Millay, a player that it really contributes on both sides of the ball. Despite creating 6 chances, her defensive efforts as a forward and a player that is on the wing for Racing Louisville to track back and defend against players like Kristin Hamilton and Maria Sanchez shows a lot about this player and her tenacity. With Kim Bjorkegren at Racing Louisville, his big focus is on the attacking side of the ball and wanting to get that first touch forward and possess the ball, moving it forward. And Lauren Millay is a player that really tried to do that throughout the Challenge Cup. There wasn't always immense success with that, but with taking chances and being a little bit more unpredictable in the attacking end, it comes with risks. And we saw Lauren Millay taking those risks. And for me, that's an MVP status, as someone who's willing to go out of her comfort zone, the team's comfort zone, to take risks, create chances for her team, and help them get goals, get wins, and get shutouts throughout the Challenge Cup. So Lauren Millay, a very good player from Racing Louisville that deserved our MVP pick here. When we look at Houston Dash, Maria Sanchez, this was a good pick. I mean, we were expecting big things from her coming in back to Houston. She did a stint with them last year and she contributed in the attack on the left side of the field. Get her stacked up 1v1. She'll beat that defender and whip an incredibly beautiful ball. So textured, great pace, curling towards the back post into the box. And the Houston Dash runners weren't always there on the end of those crosses, but Sanchez always did the work. And she could get out of like 3 defenders on top of her, spin away from it, and send crosses in. It was impressive to watch Sanchez.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I'm looking at the Central, I'm impressed with Lauren Millay. I'm impressed with Maria Sanchez, considering the struggles that maybe Racing and Houston went throughout the duration of their Challenge Cup. But if I'm keying in on an MVP for this Central region, I think I'm looking at Kristin Hamilton, a player who stepped up huge for this Kansas City side in light of this team continuing to lose pieces along the way. And not just any old regular player. We're talking about players in Lynn Williams and in Sam Mewis, and ultimately seeing someone else step up in someone like Kristin Hamilton. And also noting, we talked about Alex Loera a little bit at the top during the best 11, but obviously Elise Bennett is included in that conversation as well in terms of players who kind of had to step in light of the opportunity in front of him. So congrats to Kristin Hamilton, our MVP out of the Central overall. For the East region, let's round things out here to close out the episode. North Carolina Courage, we're going with the Binya. We've been saying her name a lot in this episode, and we were going to keep doing that for the remainder of it. MVP for us coming out of the East region. We're looking at Washington Spirit. We're going with Ashley Sanchez. Gotham FC. We're going to be going with Caprice Didasco and Orlando Pride, Gunny John's daughter, to close out the East region. There were a number of players, I think, when we were going through, again, with North Carolina Courage and Washington Spirit, trying to make the case, like, who's really going to be the MVP of these teams out of the East region. And I think settling in on a Davinia for the Courage or settling in on someone like a Sanchez for the Spirit maybe says a little bit about the competitiveness and sort of the extended talent pool that exists between those two teams. But when we're looking at maybe the teams, again, struggling a little bit in this region, when we're looking at a Gotham FC, when we're looking at an Orlando Pride, we ended up going with Didasco for Gotham FC in this one, Lisa.
We did. This was a tricky one. I mean, Gotham struggled throughout the Challenge Cup. So finding a player that was consistently making a difference, we really had to look defensively because that's where Gotham had the most consistency throughout this Challenge Cup because their attack was inconsistent, to say the least. So Caprice Didasco, she led the team with minutes played and created chances with 7. She was tied for first, and she led the team with touches, 455 touches. So she gets on the ball and she creates with it. She gets down the flank and contributes into the attack. So attacking wise, Caprice Didasco is it for Gotham. She creates those chances and she sends crosses in, but defensively, she can really establish organization in that back line and in front of goalkeepers, in front of Ashlyn Harris, and then alongside Ali Krieger. There was a lot of changes happening at Gotham, and Didasco was a consistent factor defensively for this team heading from 2021 into the 2022 Challenge Cup. So Didasco for sure gets this nod for us. And then I think Orlando Pride, we have to take a deeper look at Gunny Jonsdottir because Orlando Pride went through a lot of different changes, and Sydney LaRue dealt with a bit of an injury, and that opened up a lot of space for someone to take control of games. And Jonsdottir is typically a quieter player in that if you're not paying intense notice to Jonsdottir, you're not going to typically be like, wow, player of the match, because her touches are so quick. She just keeps the ball moving and she's not a really flashy player. But due to the number of injuries that Orlando faced and the number of inexperienced players that they had together as a group, and with the new head coach in the NWSL, Amanda Cromwell, it was Jonsdottir that stepped up and said, I can change this team. She was able to get 2 goals in her 6 games played for Orlando. But between Gotham and Orlando, those were probably the teams that we really had to look at as to which players made the most differences, despite not as a team not having the best Challenge Cup performance.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. I loved going through each of these regions and sort of picking out an MVP that we thought was for each of the 12 clubs throughout. Challenge Cup was over before we knew it, Lisa, and now here we are officially putting the closing chapter, shutting the book, saying, let's look ahead to the regular season. It was fun, though, while we were able to cover it.
So who do you pick for the East region as your number one?
When I'm looking at the East region, when we're looking at Davinia, we're looking at Sanchez, we're looking at Didasco and Jonsdottir. We chose Davinia for the overall tournament MVP. And I guess maybe that's the easy or safe pick in this one. But for the sake of being a little different, I think I'm going to go with Ashley Sanchez in this one. I liked her versatility for down the stretch. That's what I think is going to be a little bit of the difference maker for me. The Spirit making an adjustment toward in that final and having Sanchez kind of maybe play a little bit of a lower role for the Spirit in terms of trying to combat a little bit of what they were going to be seeing against the Courage in that final. But honestly, overall in her Challenge Cup, equally as impressive as the other, parts of the attacking front line that we've seen from the Spirit. This is a player that played through all 8 games and created 24 chances of her own throughout this Challenge Cup. Sort of leading Rodman in that area by just 3 in that, but notching an assist, scoring a couple goals. I'm looking for Sanchez to be the breakout player here of the East region. And I'm sure there will be discourse, as there always is. Let us know, of course, as always, what you think about the performances of the Challenge Cup, who you think stood out in the East or the West or the Central, who you think should be on the best 11, who you think is the overall tournament MVP. You know, we always love to hear from you.